Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing a quick review of The Anglo-Saxon Age by John Blair, and this is one of those Oxford very short introductions, and I want to try and get through a bunch of them, as I have quite a few just kind of like laying around. Just want to go through one or two of them every month from here on out, and let's get started with the review. Now, first of all, I feel a little shortchanged because this book and some of the other British history, very short introduction books in particular, apparently are just like abridged versions of chapters from previous works. They're not really original books. So that kind of annoyed me like once I read that. And after doing a little bit more research, apparently that's the same case too with some of the early philosophy books that they did as well. And I guess they haven't done that for a long, long time because this is one of the earliest ones, and number 18. And they have like 400 or 500 out now. So I think they stopped doing that after just like a few years. So, but yeah, I felt a little shortchanged, but there's nothing I can do about it, so I just figured I might as well read it anyways. And so let's start with some of the bad things. First of all, even for a very short introduction, it's pretty bare bones. It's only like 70 or 80 pages long. Felt pretty rushed, and there was a lot of chances where things could have been fleshed out a lot more, and they weren't. And that was definitely a disappointment. The first half of the book deals a lot more with the cultural aspect of the Anglo-Saxon Age, which I thought was pretty good, except that it didn't really cover much on the material culture and material life of just everyday Anglo-Saxons living, from like the 4th to 10th centuries. That's always like a topic that I look forward to reading, especially in periods I don't know too much about. So yeah, I was a little disappointed with that. And secondly, the other half of the book is mostly the political narrative, I guess you could say, of the Anglo-Saxon period. And you literally cover all like 600 years in like 30 pages. And it's just event after event after event. And really not much, hardly any explanation at all is given, why these people did this. I mean, they're barely mentioned. Like lots of times they'll have a name and they might appear for a page or two and that's it. And just goes by really, really fast, and nothing's really fleshed out. It just goes by really fast, and I felt there's a lot of missed opportunities for explaining why certain figures did certain things or how they could have responded differently and that sort of stuff like that. But yeah, it felt pretty rushed to be honest. And like I said, if you're covering the original Anglo-Saxon kingdoms through King Offa of Mercia, through Alfred, and then all the way to King Canute. Uh, and the Great Sea Empire all the way to William the Conqueror's conquest of England. All that's covered in, like I said, like 30 pages or something. It's just, I don't know, it just didn't work for me very well. Oh, also, one other thing before I forget, I really like King Canute, and he's not portrayed very well by John Blair in just the brief sort of passages that King Canute's story is in the book. But it makes no sense because he talks about how he wasn't really that good of a ruler, and then like the next page he's talking about how in the early 11th century, literally like right after King Canute was the sovereign of English lands, right after King Canute, he literally said England now had the strongest government in Western Europe, and you're just like, that doesn't make any sense. So I thought that was kind of weird. Alright, so now let's go to some of the good things I did like. Like most of the books in the series, the illustrations and maps and plates are really good in the book. And they give you quite a bit considering how small the book is. I think there was like 12 images and plates, which is pretty good for like an 80-page book, I'd say. And also the bibliography is always really good in these books. For the actual content, actually one of the topics that I really enjoyed reading about, even though it was still briefly covered like pretty much everything else in the book, was the culture of the Welsh peoples that basically got pushed out when the Germanics, like the Angles and Saxons and Jutes, and all those guys basically came over to England during the end of the Roman Empire days. Like for example, there was a couple things I learned I had absolutely no idea about, such as there was two Welsh kingdoms near Strathclyde that I had never even heard of before, named Reged and Elmet, and so I'm pretty much gonna have to like go get like a history book on like Welsh history just to like learn more about them, because I thought Strathclyde was kind of like this off by itself, kind of an outlier in the central-ish part of England, while Wales was kind of left in the corner. I also enjoyed the chapter on the conversion of the Anglo-Saxon pagans to Roman Catholicism, and I felt that the chapter did a really good job sort of portraying that, it wasn't just like, one day it was this and one day it was that. There was a lot of going back and forth, and it was a very kind of wonky transition basically. And for example, like the East Saxons, they converted, then went back to paganism, then converted, then went back to paganism, and then converted again. And of course, this is all like at the top levels of society. Obviously, the lower order, the lower orders of people, I guess you'd say, obviously always act a little bit different than the upper crust does. But anyways, I felt that that chapter conveyed how it wasn't just one day you're pagan and one day everyone else is Christian. It's not quite how it worked. One of the other things I liked about the book was that its description of Anglo-Saxon England showed how it was both similar and different from what you'd think of proper medieval England after like the Norman invasion. For example, the Anglo-Saxons really had no feudal manorialism going on. There was not really serfs and manor houses and lords and all that stuff, but there was still like kind of that village tenant life, I guess you'd say, and there was a lot of structures in the Anglo-Saxon age that still carried over into the medieval age, and that's sort of what differentiates medieval England from, say, like medieval Germany or medieval France. And I thought that was pretty well done. So overall, I felt this book had a lot more potential. I felt even like an extra 10 or 20 pages could have fleshed out a lot of the events and characters that are in the narrative a lot more. That would have definitely strengthened the book quite a bit. Because like I said, it was pretty close. It was most of the events just went by so fast that there was really no clarification of why these events basically were happening. So I'm going to give this mixed bag of the Anglo-Saxon Age, a very short introduction, a 3 out of 5 stars, since I was disappointed quite a bit, but I still learned some as well. Hopefully the next very short introduction book that I read, I'll enjoy a lot more. And always remember, read victoriously.